It is the storyline that has got soap viewers gripped. Hollyoaks' Kelle and his secret struggle with his mental health. As his heartbreaking story heads towards a devastating climax, Kelly's co-star Adam Rickitt joins us now to tell us how his own battle with depression helped him to prepare. Hi Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm dressed like a brickie. I've been out, it's very hot.
You've been doing some DIY maybe around the house?
I've been working in, my wife and I, we have a bar, which has now become the Amazon of alcohol for people. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm just busy in there lugging kegs around all day.
And how has that been? Is it a release for you, obviously, being able to sort of keep busy in that way? Because this
Yeah.
storyline has been incredibly difficult. It'd be difficult for anybody, Adam, but for someone who's been through their own experiences of mental health difficulties, did you find it particularly challenging?
Yeah, I did in some respects because, I mean, it's quite out there in the public forum that I had issues when I was a teenager with an eating disorder. But what I don't think ever I've spoken about or has ever, people have realised is that actually my issues premeditated that and also went on a lot beyond that. I basically suffered from anxiety and depression from ages 13 to 30. So for 17 years of my life was essentially suicidal. It comes in peaks and waves like it does for so many people. But for, the best part of still to this day, the greater portion of my adult life was spent suicidal.
How did, can I
It
just...
was difficult. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt there, Adam. You said quite clearly the age ranges there, 13 to 30,
Yeah.
and you've said that you can actually pinpoint the moment where you realised that you were, in your own words, better. What was that moment?
Yeah, it was. I was out living in New Zealand working on a TV show out there, and my mum rang me on my 30th birthday to wish me happy birthday. And she said, "What are you doing for your birthday?" And I just burst into tears. And it was because I was just sat on my deck reading a book. And it was the first time since I was 13 years old I'd been able to be at peace in my own mind enough to actually just sit there and do nothing. Because from the age of 13, I'd always have to do something to distract myself. Now, whether that was something self-destructive or whether it was just being obsessive in doing something else, it was this permanent sort of catalogue of day to day, always having to do something to distract myself. And, that is what most mental health issues are, whether it's alcoholism, drug addiction, eating disorders, sex addiction. It is basically you fixating on one issue because it stops you having to...
How did you actually come to that, though, sort of as you hit 30? Was it something that you worked at, or was it...
It was, definitely, yeah. I mean, I'd reached a point where I was essentially praying to die. I would quite happily have killed myself. The only thing that stopped me ever killing myself was the fact that I knew my parents would blame themselves. And I didn't mind ending my life, but I didn't want to ruin their life. And I kind of reached a sort of a crunch point when I was kind of like 28 years old. And I got an opportunity to go to New Zealand. And it was meant to be for 3 months. And it ended up turning into 5 years. And it just gave me that space and that time and that breath to actually just go, there is something out there for me. Or even if I didn't even know at that time that there was something positive out for me, but I just got an inkling that there might be. And that was the first time in 15 years at that point that I, for one moment, thought there might be even a chance of me being happy and being normal. So it was a defining moment where I kind of sort of made a conscious decision. Either I was going to do something about it, or I was just going to, fade away into nothingness. And it was, there was no miracle cure. That was the worst thing. I was desperate for the entire 17 years, let alone the last few years of it. I was desperate to go and see somebody and have them wave a magic wand and me be cured, have me break down in tears and say something. And that would be, me walked out in my hallelujah moment. And it's not how it works. It is a gradual process. And the big defining thing for me was learning, and people say to love yourself. It's not so much loving yourself, it's accepting that you have this part of you. Now, whether it's a inner demon, if you want to call it, or whether you want to call it your inspiration, every single one of us has this part of us which can push us too far. And, in my case and a lot of other people's cases, it had gotten out of control and I just had to learn to rein it in, but realize that I couldn't actually exercise it from me because it was part of who I am. And instead turn it into a positive.
Sorry, Adam, turning that into a positive is absolutely brilliant. Can I ask a question, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
You know, you were saying all of these experiences, and obviously we share the soap in common, but did you find that you were able to use any of those experiences for actually playing the role?
Oh God, definitely. I mean, you know, when I was originally, my contract was ending in December, and I was originally going to be leaving then, and then I got asked by Brian to come on and stay on and do this storyline. And I'll be honest, I kind of had three initial reactions. My first emotion was pride. It was pride that the show was doing it, and it was pride that they'd asked me to do it. It was excitement because as an actor, it was something really dramatic. But there was also a lot of fear because having gone through that, it was petrifying to think about having to revisit it in quite such a public forum. And then I actually realized, you know what, that's a positive again, because I can actually put my own self in. You know, as an actor, you always try to put yourself into a role. But, you know, it was something where I really did have firsthand experience. And I kind of was able to meet with the directors, meet with the writers, and really have some positive input to it. So although it was scary, it was also, it's that whole thing of when you have a sword which breaks, you put it back into the furnace and you remold it, and it comes out stronger than it ever was before. And that was the same for me with mental health. Once I'd been through the ringer, I came out stronger than ever before. So even though it was daunting and it was difficult to do, I knew it would never be something that broke me again.
And obviously, Adam, obviously, Kelle and you share Hollyoaks, and you and I, of course, go back
Hello!
100 years to Coronation Street when we were both struggling with mental illness, and when at that time I would have been your #1 customer at your bar in Knutsford. But I was going to say that obviously this is a subject that's very, very close to my heart as well, and many, many people in our current situation in lockdown are struggling massively with mental health. Those because of lockdown and those who don't want to come out of lockdown. Because you yourself have lost a year and a half's worth of work, and we know that the theatre industry is on its knees and was going to take some time to come back up, which it will. Has that affected you in any way?
I'll be honest with you, I've been very lucky in that my wife and I have the bar, because I literally was all set to leave Hollyoaks, and I had 15 months worth of acting work all lined up. And within the space of the hour, the entire 15 months disappeared as the TV shows were cancelled. Fingers crossed they'll come back. But luckily I did have the bar, which I was able to, which basically we got rung by not health and safety. Who is it, Katie? Trading Standards rang us, basically asked us to open back up as an off licence, because people were blocking up all the supermarkets to get alcohol, so people couldn't buy food.
And of course, lovely Katie, you credit with being one of your saviours as well, because the partner of people who live with mental health is a very, you know, sort of underrepresented body of folk as well.
Adam, can I just quickly ask you, anyone watching this interview who's going through the same... Hi, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Any man in particular, because I think men in particular do not talk about mental health issues. Any man watching this who what you're saying is resonating with them, what would you say to them?
I mean, ever since, you know, because I was lucky enough to come through, and I realised some people don't, I actually do a lot of counselling now as well. And the way I always describe it is that every single one of us has the potential of having a mental health problem. Doesn't matter if you're susceptible to it or if you're incredibly strong. Every single one of us is susceptible, has the risk of having a breakdown or some kind of issue. I always describe it to people as basically your mental health is like a balloon. It gets blown up every single day a little bit. It might be something big and catastrophic like your wife being hit and killed, or it might be them running out of Rice Krispies at the supermarket. But every single day it gets inflated that little bit more. Women are better than men because women talk. And when they talk, what happens is they let just a tiny bit of air out each time they do. Men don't tend to talk about these things. So what happens is that they're inevitably going to explode. And it doesn't matter whether they consider themselves weak, whether they consider themselves strong. If you don't talk to somebody about it, there is a breaking point for every single one of us. And you just need the right catastrophe of chain of events, and every single one of us will break. And the only way you can stop it is by talking. It doesn't have to be to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. No. It could be your mate. It could be your doc. It could be you just have to have some form of release.
Adam, do you know what? That's why it's so brilliant that someone like you comes on and is such a great advocate for our Stand By Your Men campaign, because everything you said will resonate not only with our female viewers, but with our male viewers as well. We We've sadly run out of time. Could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for joining us today.
See you in Knutsford for a mocktail.
Yes,
And Hollyoaks tonight, Channel 4, 6:30 p.m. And we also have to say, if you've been affected by anything that Adam's been talking about, please head to our website where there is information and helplines available and details of our Stand By Your Men campaign.